Hello, hello, hello. And do you want to boost your brand awareness? Well, that is our topic for today. Welcome to the Marketing, Branding and Getting the Sales Show. I'm here today with my co-hosts, Jess and Stephen. Before we dive into today's topic, let's just do some quick introductions. So, Jess, off you go.
Yes, good morning, everyone. So for those of you that don't know who I am, or this is the first time you're coming across me, my name is Jess. I help people create and maintain a powerful and profitable brand. So many businesses are under the impression that the visual identity, the logo, is their brand. Well, in fact, that's only 16% of your brand. It's 84% more that your brand needs to be powerful and profitable. So that's what I do. I take businesses through my 6-step brand loyalty process to find out what gaps they've got within the brand and help fill them.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jess. Stephen, over to you.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Stephen Lemon from Chameleon BDS, and I help companies get in front of the people they want to in order to try and increase their sales. And if they don't like to make those outbound phone calls or have a fear of making those phone calls or don't have the time to make those phone calls, then we can have a conversation and I can tell you how I can help you by making all those appointments for you and doing all the cold calling and prospecting.
Great stuff. And if you haven't met me yet, my name is Una Doyle. I'm the founder of Creative Flow. I'm a business strategist and coach, and I aim to help businesses. I do help businesses to build a business that they could sell tomorrow, but they probably don't want to because it's highly profitable. They and team members are in creative flow, so they get to have more fun and freedom, and they get to make more of an impact in the world. So if you want to know how I can help you to double your profits in only 47 minutes, DM me or comment below, and I will send you the details on how to do that. Okay, so Jess, let's come over to you and talk about brand awareness. So what are some of the mistakes that people make when it comes to brand awareness?
The first mistake or the first kind of misconception about brand awareness is that it takes little planning and little strategy. Many businesses use it to maybe cover up bad or unplanned marketing. So if they've not got time to plan anything out, it's okay. We'll just use it as brand awareness. We'll just put our logo on there, and we'll just get our brand out there. When in fact, when businesses are doing that, you're wasting so much money and actually not moving anyone down your sales funnel. You might be getting in front of people, but then what? They're not going anywhere. They're not doing anything. So that's a biggest kind of mistake that businesses make, which is why I wanted to go through that today. But before I do, I just want to kind of elaborate on what I mean by brand awareness. Because again, if there's a huge misconception around brand awareness, I'm sure many of us have completely different, definitions of what brand awareness actually is and the purpose of it. So brand awareness actually represents how familiar your target audience is with your brand and how well that they recognize it. So when a brand has high awareness, they're more likely trending, or they're kind of like that buzzword, or, like when TikTok first came out and it was trending hugely, and it kind of still is. They're really aware in front of their audience and making their audience aware of who they are. So all this is important, especially for the people that are at the early stage of the buying process. So I can go into a bit more detail on that later as well. But it does all come down to your reputation, and just throwing your logo out there and kind of using it as brand awareness isn't giving you control over your reputation at all. It's kind of handing that control over to everybody else, whereas you want to take that control back and kind of influence and inspire and encourage what people think and feel about your brand. So
It's all about trust, isn't it, Jess?
Yeah, trust is a huge one, especially at that kind of beginning stage, because at the beginning stage of the buying process, your audience is very unaware of who you are. They're probably even unaware that they've got a problem and that, that it is a problem. They're probably just going by day to day thinking this is how you do things. If you ever think back of when someone invented the fork, like what were people doing before using a fork? Like little things like that, it's kind of things that you kind of don't realize what you're doing until there's a solution about it. So you've got to build that trust to introduce what your product or service is, what your solution is, and kind of make people aware of what's going on for them and how they can make their lives better and easier.
And the reason I talk about trust is because, at some point your brand actually then becomes a verb, doesn't it? As opposed to a product. So like, I remember, my mum would say, can you hoover the floor for me? And it's not a Hoover, it's a vacuum. But we ought to, because you don't say, can you Dyson the floor or can you Shark the floor? It's Hoover, because that brand is so trusted. You know, people then make it a verb. And also, if you get a boo-boo or a cut, it's a Band-Aid, isn't it? It's not a plaster or an elastoplast, it's a Band-Aid. Because people trust those brands because they've been around forever, that it just seems like the normal, and that's why I think it becomes very difficult for competition to come in and encroach on that market share.
Yeah, sellotape's another one, isn't it? Because sellotape it's sticky tape, but everyone calls it sellotape no matter what brand you're buying, which is there. And it's a really good point. I'm glad you kind of mentioned that, because even businesses and even brands that have that huge reputation and are kind of market leaders and dominate the market that much that we're even changing our language, with them or around them, still have to do brand awareness. So it's not just about you're a startup or people don't know who you are, and that's when you've got to focus on brand awareness. Everybody does. So whether you are a startup, you need to establish that reputation, don't you, from unknown to aware. So obviously brand awareness is a good way of doing that. We might be pivoting, changing direction, maybe introducing a new product line or a new mission, or your values have changed. I know a lot of businesses went through that during COVID. All of a sudden they couldn't sell or do what they did, so they had to pivot, and brand awareness helps with that. Fixing a reputation, if for whatever reason your company has a bad reputation, or maybe you've bought into a company that has a bad reputation, then brand awareness helps fix that as well. And like you were saying, Stephen, even if you're a market leader, even if people love your brand and they can't live without your brand, you've still got to do brand awareness to maintain that position. So easy to get taken over if we take our eye off the ball.
Absolutely.
So I've got a question for you, because how does this, we're mainly working with SMEs. We're not working with the kind of the large corporates, and that's who typically is kind of watching this or listening to this. So how does that apply? Because brand awareness conjures up kind of huge advertising budgets for those kinds of companies, for the Hoovers and the sellotapes, and even like Google, like people say Google it, they don't say, go to a search engine.
It's too time consuming, isn't it?
Exactly. It does become a shorthand, doesn't it? So how does this apply to smaller businesses?
We still need to do it, don't we? We still need to do it. But like you say, yeah, we don't have the bigger budgets. Yeah, we don't have the departments, the time that kind of help to put off, but there's still good ways of doing it. So a big kind of struggle that smaller businesses will have around brand awareness is not knowing how to create a strategy around brand awareness. We don't know what we don't know. So we're saying, okay, yeah, this would be a great opportunity for brand awareness. Well, what do you want on it? Okay, well, put our logo, maybe our tagline and our website. Great, it's done. So we've got to have a strategy behind what we're doing and a bit of a purpose. And a lot of us running smaller businesses have never been told how to do that. We just don't know. So understanding how to create a strategy for your brand awareness is really key. Also thinking it's a huge complicated task, because exactly like you said, there's so many things you can do for brand awareness, isn't there? There's even marketing in general. There's so many things you can do, and it can be overwhelming if you don't know which direction to take. So you can think, I don't have the time, I don't have the energy, I don't have the headspace for all this, and kind of it gets pushed down your list. Not knowing what to say. So I've said, don't just put your logo on there and leave it like that. So you go, okay, that's great advice, but what do I say? What message do I get across?
I mean, a lot of the time, people's logos don't actually communicate what a business does or how it sets themselves apart from the competitors. So the messaging that goes along with this is hugely important. Thanks, Anne, who's joined us. She's saying really interesting conversation and so true. And good morning to Chris, who says, I completely agree with everything you say. So hopefully you still feel the same by the end of this conversation, Chris. So what are some brand awareness strategies then that you would advise smaller businesses to do that don't have those huge advertising budgets?
Well, let's jump on to some ideas then, some brand awareness ideas that you can do to maybe spark some brainstorming if you're watching this, and then I'll go into some tips on how you can make the most of them and get the most out of them. So some brand awareness ideas, like I said, there's an endless list of things that you can do, but some things that you might not have thought about. One might be a core marketing kind of campaign. You know, whether that's creating a bundle with someone, whether it's advertising each other to each other's customers or clients, whatever you're doing, kind of just promoting each other. So a co-marketing campaign will help you do that. Again, having a strategy behind that. And you don't necessarily have to have the same product or service to do that. You don't necessarily have to both have a food product or a drink product, or you know, have a particular service. Red Bull and GoPro, I think they did a co-marketing campaign maybe over the past few years. An energy drink and a camera, completely different products, but then they have the same target audience. So each other already has access to speak to the target audience. So that's what you've got to think, you know, okay, who is already speaking and communicating with who I want to be part of my brand, and how can we buddy up to do something that gives high value to them people. But again, think about what's kind of a low time, low cost for you as well, and what could be high value for the customer. So a co-marketing campaign, one idea.
I like that, you know, when you talk about the GoPro and Red Bull, I can see that even though they're very different products, you can see their audience would be the same. Like I think they have a lot of brand values in common, probably.
Yeah,
So
the archetypes are very similar.
yeah,
So they're both adventurers. They're both
those very
the
go
outlaws.
for it kind of brands, aren't they?
Exactly. The outlaws in the archetype wheel. So they're the ones that want to challenge that status quo. They want to push out your boundaries. They want to conquer new ideas, conquer new adventures, and kind of get out there. You know, Red Bull gives you wings. It's like that endless possibilities to do what you want with the energy you've got. GoPro, it's like going out and, you know, when you're skiing, still being able to take pictures and do a video. And it's all about pushing the boundaries. So they do have very similar values as well as target audience as well. Another one is co-branding. Now, this can be quite expensive one to do. And I wanted to mention it because I didn't want people to get confused with co-marketing and co-branding. So co-branding is when you actually partner up to create a product or a service. So a quick example, you have did Doritos do a KFC crisps at some point recently?
Don't know.
They might have done, unless I've made that up. Let me know if I've made that up if you're watching in the comments. But I'm sure Doritos and KFC or something like that has partnered up to create KFC flavored Doritos. So that's completely different to co-marketing, because you invest in budget, time to create a new product or a new service if you're a service-based business. So don't jump straight into branding. Try a co-marketing campaign with that business first. So I wanted to differentiate the two because I didn't want people to go, oh, co-marketing, okay, well, I'll create a new product or service, and then you're wasting a lot of time, budget, and resources doing that. Referral schemes. Another great way. So some of us might be part of a networking group where we've got referral partners. Some of us might already be part of, have partnerships with other similar services, but really utilizing them partnerships and coming up with some referral marketing schemes. That's another great way to build brand awareness. Sponsorships as well. But again, making sure that they're a really good fit. Don't just, as soon as someone comes and go, oh, we need a sponsorship for this, and you go, yeah, I'm on it. Yeah, I'll do it. Think, is this really in line with my brand? Is this really where my audience is at? Do they really want to see me here? Like, really consider, is it the right fit? Rolex do a lot of sponsoring, but you don't see them in the banners behind a football match. You'll see them in F1's kind of the Golf Open days. They've started sponsoring, I think, like opera houses and theatres as well now. So not that they're saying, oh, we're too good for that, but they know that their target audience, people who are buying a Rolex, are probably more likely watching the F1 or playing golf rather than watching a local football match. So thinking, where is your audience hanging out? Also ads, whether it's digital, so social media, Google, whether it's printed ads, magazines, anything like that. When you do these things, make sure that your ad has a message to it. The amount of times I flick through magazines, I see social media ads that don't have a message or a call to action or anything. They're just kind of just putting them out there, and people might be, oh, that's great, but what do I do? I need to do something. I'm inspired to do something. And
I gotta tell you, I was at the cinema the weekend watching, great film by the way, Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. And so I was there with a friend, and one of the ads, I think, oh yeah, it was Pepsi Max. And I watched this ad, and I turned to my friend and I said, that ad is terrible. And she said, I was just thinking the same thing. Now, I know we might not be the audience for that ad, but it just was like, there was no message behind it. It just, to me, it was real kind of creativity over substance in terms of, you know, like no messaging that actually was in any way meaningful or was going to tap into the hot buttons of their customers, you know. So yeah,
It's so easy done as well, because when we're involved in our brand and in our services and in our products, it's common knowledge what the message and what the gains and all, you know, what the frustrations are. So we forget to communicate it. We want we want the new exciting thing. When I come to tips, I've got some great ways that you can you know, figure out what that message can be. So yeah, so social media, you know, organic social media, build that community, encourage people to actually engage. You know, the amount of companies that have a big audience, a big community, but they might have 5 likes on the post, they might have a couple of comments, they might have no comments. Encourage engagement. It only takes a quick question to ask what your audience is going through and involve them in what you're saying. My dog is sleeping on the sofa. This is not another brand awareness tip, but he's starting to snore and he's starting to do that, you know, like when they're running in their sleep. So if you hear background noise, that's what
we
it is.
can't hear it.
I've got a few more quickly. You've got flyer dropping, so you know, going around kind of posting flyers. A lot more people are doing this now. I think since only past 6 months, I've been hearing businesses saying, "Oh yeah, we've tried that and it's worked." But you know, posting flyers into people's letterboxes. Now again, very similar to ads, you can quite easily just add to the noise when you do that, because how many times do you get pointless, you know, kind of cheap flyers through your letterbox? I've had a couple. Do you know what? I might have it on my desk, which isn't planned, but it's a really good example. I had a flyer pushed through my letterbox, and it was for blinds and curtains, and it had a letter stapled to it, which looked handwritten. It was like the size of a post-it note, and it was just kind of, "Oh, we're in your area. You know, we've got a discount. Let us know." And you know, it was something along that message. I thought it was handwritten. I was even like inspecting the paper to be like, "How have they done this?" And they've actually just written it once and copied and pasted and copied it, you know, in the photocopier.
Yeah.
So again, you don't have to sit there. It doesn't have to be time consuming. But something else they did that jumped out to me was they stapled a bit of material to it as well from a blind. So I was feeling the blind and I was seeing the colour of it. And just something so simple that, especially if you've got a product-based service, if not, if you're a service, think of the paper that you're putting it on. Is it thin? Is it going to rip easy? Or does it have a bit of, you know, a bit of texture to it? Is it going to spark any kind of interest? So that was a really good one. Networking. So a lot of businesses fall into networking and you think, right, okay, I've got to do 2 networking groups a week and I just have to attend. Again, you've got to have a strategy around your networking to build brand awareness successfully. The amount of times I see people attend groups and go, I'm here just to build brand awareness. This is what I do, and then sit down. And it's like, well, you're not building brand awareness. You're just showing up and saying who you are. You know, how can we engage with what you do? How can we be part of that? And events, shows, exhibitions, another great way to build brand awareness. So again, kind of a quick go through some ideas, but hopefully some of them you'd not thought about before or you didn't even know existed, and maybe you can start having a look into some of them.
And I think it's great to share all these. The number of times I've spoken with small and medium-sized business owners that are just, it's like they're obsessed with social media. Now, I know we're here on social media today. I'm not saying that social media can't work and can't be very effective. You know, quite often when I do talk with people, they will say, I've been watching your videos or I've been listening to your podcast, you know. So that definitely does work. And there we go, podcasts, that's another one, doing lives. Those are some more tactics that can be done. But, you know, there's more than one way to actually promote your business, and so quite often people don't look into these, and they can just be kind of very focused on what they do. And then also you've got maybe perhaps more established businesses that aren't looking at what they could be doing online. But I think, as you're saying, having the strategy behind these things is just so important. So like the amount of times, even like with business cards, right? So I actually have, when I'm at an event, I have people coming up and going, "Oh, Una, can I have one of your cards?" Because I have things at the back of each card is different. And so I've got different messages and quotes. I've got offers, free trainings. There's all sorts of things, on them. And so, people be like, "Oh, wow, what have I got?" And looking at each other's, when there's a group of us around that. So it's about having the strategy. What do you want people to do? What do you want people to know? Getting clear on all of these things is so important. A couple of things. Chris is just sharing that 2019 KFC launched a Doritos burger. So there we go. That's what it was.
I got it the wrong way around, didn't I? But yeah, it's a good example of two brands coming together.
Exactly. And this tickled me. Chris also said, "I see Paddy as the brand ambassador for a sofa brand." There we go. Maybe we can get a sofa brand to sponsor us here, and you can have Paddy you and Paddy sat on the sofa.
Jess, I've got a quick question for you. What are your thoughts on like market influencers for promoting the brand? I remember there was a woman a few years ago. She was all over Facebook. I think she was from like Yorkshire. She had a really strong accent, and she would promote like feminine products, and they were hilarious. But she like became the face of so many different products because she was promoting them all over social media channels. And because then you associate a face, don't you, on a person with a particular brand. Like there's one for Imperial Leather. There's the football pundit. Oh my god, his name's Chris Kamara. Was it Imperial Leather? And the guy on the horse. Do you remember that one? There was a guy on a horse on a beach for Imperial Leather. Look at me, look at the horse.
Yes,
remember that one?
Spice, Old Spice.
That was it, Old Spice, whatever it was. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry, Imperial Leather. It was the colour set red and white. But the people like that and just social media influencers, they can have a massive effect, can't they?
I mean, there's agencies that specialize in how to work with different influencers. But you can also do it on a smaller scale as well. You can have like one of the clients I worked with, Lola Pops. It's a handmade children's clothes. So it's an e-commerce company, and so she has brand ambassadors. So she's done social media very well. She's built up a great group, very engaged, very loyal customers, and so she actually had people apply to be brand ambassadors and has used their children in her photography. And and they have, I think they have like affiliate links, and so when they share, they get to earn. And so I mean, affiliates, that's another way of partnering with other people as well. So we can take these strategies that are often used by bigger businesses and scale them down to work with our businesses. It just takes a bit of strategy, a bit of creativity to make it work and make sure that your money isn't wasted. And I see this a lot in like I don't have one. Here we no. Do I have one? Yeah, here we go. So I've got one of these things, the kind of local thing, and there's all these ads in them. And I always have a flick through, and just most of the ads are dreadful. Apologies, everyone who's advertising in here, but please talk to me. I can help you to get much better results from your ads, because they're often like what you were saying about Jess, about the networking, and it's like they're just showing up. But there's no messaging, there's no offers, there's nothing that would actually engage people or separate them from the competition, who are often advertising in exactly the same place. So I think for me, that's the thing, is that brand awareness on its own isn't enough. And I'm really pleased with the way you're talking about it, from my point of view. To I think a lot of marketing people out there just focus on the brand awareness and they're not talking about the strategy, they're not talking about the messaging or the call to actions or how to make things more effective. And I think that really lets people down, particularly, when they're a small business and they don't have a big budget. They can't blanket like, the kind of Coca-Colas and Pepsis of the world. They have to be highly targeted, highly specific, and really understanding their audience
Yeah.
to make things work, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So I've got 7 tips then that can help you actually take that action. Before I do go into that as well, influencers, I wanted to, because exactly like you were saying, I wanted to, if even the word influencers sounds a bit scary, because sometimes I create a strategy for a client, and part of that strategy is getting influencers on board. And the face is kind of like, oh, you think, oh, pound signs, it's going to cost me a lot. I'm going to have to get someone off Love Island to wear my t-shirt or have my product, because that's the only influencers that we're in front of. But like you were saying, stripping it back. So when influencers is mainly a great strategy when you're new to our people aren't familiar with who you are. If you're established and you've got a great position, then your target audience is more the mass. You've got a mass target audience. It's kind of a lot more people, so you can have a lot more effective strategies and tactics. So influencers are mainly great for people are, the audience is still a bit unaware of who they are. So when you're kind of establishing that reputation and people aren't quite sure of your brand, you're familiar with who you are yet, influencers are a great way to get into them early adopters, them people that, like if you think of Apple, for example, now anyone and everyone will queue. Well, a lot of people will queue for miles and miles and miles to get the new iPhone. I pre-order, I when there's tickets going on sale for a famous band or an artist, people on Ticketmaster refreshing it, because they've already built that reputation. The mass audience is engaging with that. But before you get to that point, you've got to get in front of the early adopters, the people that find the new brands, the people that other people follow. And that doesn't have to be people that are on Instagram and you pay them thousands of pounds to look at your product. It can be journalists or local papers or just an expert in your field. So if you've got a pet food product, it could be a vet or someone nutrition, an animal nutritionist or something like that. So think outside the box with it, of not just, oh, what celeb can I get in front of, but what expert in my field can I get to talk about my business. So yeah, right, tips. So tip number 1, always have a call to action. Okay. Whether it's a sponsorship ad, your exhibition, whether you've got a big banner behind your stall, packaging, flyers, postcards, anything that you're doing, make sure it's a call to action. Tip number 2, your call to action doesn't always have to be an invitation to buy. So you don't, on everything, you don't always have to say, use this discount code, buy now, shop now. It can be as simple as scan this code, enter this competition, leave a review, like, comment, share on a post, take a photograph and share it with us, find out more. As long as it's an action, it doesn't matter what it is. So yeah, make sure that your call to action isn't always an invitation to buy. Tip number 3, so you can create a cheat sheet to find out what your call to action is going to be. Okay. If you want to know more about this, because this is quite, it can sound quite complicated when you're unfamiliar with it. So if you want to know more about this after we've talked, drop me a message. But you can quite easily create a cheat sheet which tells you what call to action you can do for different people along the buying journey. So to do that, all you have to do is figure out what that journey is for your target audience. So map it out from being completely oblivious to who you are all the way through to being a loyal customer. What touch points or what steps do they take? So they start to become familiar with your brand. They start considering your brand. They buy. They might repeat that purchase. They become loyal. So think about what kind of steps people take. Put that on the top of a table, and underneath that table, put thinking, feeling, and doing at the side. And I want you to brainstorm what would be your ideal customer, what they're thinking and feeling and doing through all them different stages. But then I also want you to do another table which shows what rejections or the reasons people might not go through to the next stage. So if you have a lot of people that become familiar with who your brand is, but they don't end up buying, find out a bit of research about why and put that stuff in this table. Once you've got these tables, you can then look at them next to each other and go, right, okay, well, I'm seeing a lot of people showing interest in my product, but not buying. So I'm going to do a campaign all around this topic with this call to action, because you're matching it up with what you want them to do. So again, like I said, it can sound, because I can't show it you on a screen or anything like that. So if it sounds complicated and you just want to see an example of that, simply just see an example, drop me a message and I'll send that over to you. So tip number 4, never, please, after watching this, never lead with your logo, okay? This is kind of a design tip, if you will, for those of you that are still doing your own design work for stuff like this. We kind of fall into the trap of having our logo really big, smack bang in the middle of the top of the page of the ad, and then we'll have our strap line, and then we might have a small kind of question or a bit of a statement, and then a call to action. Never ever lead with your logo. People don't care what your logo is or looks like, and like Una said right at the beginning, it might not even show what you do. Again, think of John Lewis, Sainsbury's, Asda. If you just saw the word Asda and you were oblivious to what Asda was, I know it's quite hard to imagine that now, but it wouldn't do anything for you, would it? It wouldn't inspire any action. So never lead with your logo. What you can lead with, so lead with that. So when you looked at the rejections and the part of the journey, come up with a message that talks to them people, that talks to their fears, their frustrations, their concerns, the reason they're not moving on to the next step, and have a message revolving around that. So have your message as the big kind of, first thing people see. Because if you think as well, when we read left to right and we'll read the biggest thing first. So have your message kind of bigger at the top, leaving from the left, and then kind of have maybe a small supporting text, your call to action, and then your logo.
You want a headline and a sub-headline.
Yeah.
You've got to be tapping into people's pain points.
Yeah.
People don't do that enough. And, sometimes when people say, oh, but I don't want to make people feel bad, but it's not about making people feel bad. And there is fear-based marketing out there. I don't think it's conducive. Well, it's not very ethical, is it? But there's a difference, I think, between highlighting someone's pain point and attracting their attention and encouraging them to read on or watch on. Whereas if, you've really got to be, if someone doesn't think that something is relevant to them, they just switch off. In fact, they won't even switch on in the first place. So, you've got to do that. So thanks, Sam. You're talking my language. OMG.
I saw a billboard on a bus stop when I was driving the other day, and I was just in some traffic, so I started reading it. And the main thing that you saw, the biggest kind of question, the biggest headline, so they got that bit right, but it said, do you have a 4-year-old or a 2-year-old or something like that? And then that's all I could see from where I was. And there was some supporting text. And as I got closer, I looked at it and I thought, it was I think it was promoting, hours that you can get for free for your kids, or you can, I don't know, it was promoting something where if you had a 2 or a 4-year-old or whatever it was, you could bring them to this event or whatever. But do you have a 2-year-old kind of doesn't inspire anyone to do anything, does it? They might read it and go, yeah, I do, and walk off. It doesn't kind of encourage anything. But if they had a headline kind of talking about, how annoying it is to have your 2-year-old in the house and you just need a break, to get them somewhere and do something, then that's all of a sudden going to get people to go, oh my God, yeah, I need that now. I'm going to stop at this bus stop and read this billboard and get there. So yeah, be careful what that message is, but make sure you're always leading with it. Never tip number, what are we on? 4, 6?
Right, I do tip number 5, but I just want to say, Anna's just saying, emotional marketing is key, absolutely. And, do you solve my problem? No, not interested. Absolutely. Yeah. I think we have to be brutal, Anne. We've got to help our clients to really understand this stuff, or else they're just wasting their money, they're wasting their time. Absolutely. So yeah, tip number 5.
Yeah, great points, Anne. So yeah, tip number 5. Never lead a brand awareness campaign without a strategy. Yep, so we talked about that. So never think, oh, let's just do it for brand awareness. Make sure there's always a strategy to it. If you don't know how to create a strategy, just reach out to someone. Reach out to me. I'm sure Una can help with that as well. Whoever you get on with, whoever you know in your network, and just say, can you give me a bit of a framework for strategy? Can you help me out? Where do I start? Google it. HubSpot have got some great resources. I'm sure there's something on there about building a strategy. But never ever lead a campaign without a strategy, even your brand awareness campaigns. So a bit of a checklist that you can write down now if you've got pen and paper to hand, or even just kind of look back at this later. First step, you need to think of your objective. What is it that you want to achieve from this strategy? Remind yourself of your vision. So remind yourself what it is that where is the strategy going to take you? Look at what your goals are. So break that down into maybe just do 2 or 3 goals. Could be simple, could be, it could be the simplest goals as in increasing your followers, or something like that. It's very simple if it needs to be. Then think of what challenges will come up for each of them goals. So if your goal is to build more followers, what could come up to stop you doing that? Well, time to post and engage and get people on there. What is it that's going to show up that could stop you from doing what you achieving that goal? Because if we know that ahead, we can plan to prevent it. So now you've got your goal and what challenge could come ahead, you can create a bit of a strategy to go, okay, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to, get, specific number of followers, and I'm going to use specific software to make sure that everything is planned in advance and I don't need to take time in my day to do it. Something like that. And then lastly, you can break that down into even simpler terms and just list some tactics. So, you need to spend some time on creating your content, you need to spend some time on scheduling it, you need to spend some time on engaging, and you've got kind of a really tactic list on what you need to do. Again, if this is all sounding very complicated, reach out to someone, have a look. Once you've got a framework, once you've got a bit of a template, after practice, it just gets easier and easier.
There's just one thing I like to throw into that as well, is that do make sure that you then review. So you set your objectives and you got you got a measure, okay, like the number of followers. Did you hit that? What worked? What didn't work? That review process is often missing when I'm working with clients. And so in helping them put that in place, it's amazing what they learn. So then they actually get to start building mastery and momentum, because they're constantly doing, plan, do, review, plan, do, review. That's what we've got to be doing over and over and over again.
Yeah, spot on. And there's different ways that you can
do that. There's sunlight here. I'm getting blind. Apologies, folks. Let me just move the camera.
There's so many different ways that you can review and measure it as well, because that was something else that I've not even mentioned, is that brand awareness is something that people aren't even measuring. Because how do you measure brand awareness? I don't know. What do I do? But exactly like you say, reviewing them strategies is a great way to measure it. Having a CRM system, you can get a free one to start off with, to add your information in there, track what part of that journey that you created for your cheat sheet, what part of that journey are people getting through and where they're coming off. Using codes in your referral marketing or flyers to track where they're coming from. Always ask, where did you hear about me? Who told you about me? How did you find out about me?
Such a
always ask that
for people to do. Yeah.
Track the deal stages. So in your CRM, you can have the deal stages and you can see where people are dropping off, and you can contact them and go, oh, I know we were going to do this, or I know you were going to buy that, but what happened? What happened? What came up? And let's have a chat and just find out about what's going on for people. So we're on to the 6th tip: delegate. Use your strategy. Now you've got a strategy, now you can delegate. It's not all in your head anymore. You're not the person that has to steer this and drive it and be there actually implementing it. Use your strategy to delegate and get people on board. And then that's where, you can start tracking it as well. You can start making sure that campaign's actually working. So whether it's delegating it to staff, delegating it to a software, delegating it to a VA, a PA, delegate. You can't do it all yourself. No matter how much you're trying, you can't do it all yourself. And lastly, to kind of tie into that, be consistent and use your guidelines to do that. So whether you've done your brand before or created a brand before, I hope you would have received guidelines and then use them guidelines. A lot of the time they get pushed in a drawer somewhere or saved in a file on the computer and never looked at. When you're delegating, use your guidelines to be consistent.
Great tips, Jess. Thank you very much. This has been like a webinar, okay? There's been so much information shared today. So do please make sure that you go back through it if you need it. Like, these are here, they're sat, save it. You can bookmark this, and come back and revisit it. So Stephen, anything to add or any questions from what Jess
No,
has
you've
been?
got some great tips there. The 7 tips are amazing. And tip number 2 for me was quite special. It doesn't always have to be about buying. I think people do tend to make that mistake. There are other ways to increase your brand awareness without,
Sell.
Yeah, exactly.
I think a lot of the time people are worried about coming across as too salesy, too pushy, etc. But when you do have a strategy, when you do map out a prospect kind of customer journey, then you can put things in place that are going to actually really make a difference. And that you can have those different call to actions. Even just look at us when we're introducing ourselves. I'm talking about, you want to find out how to do this, I can send you a video. Jess says, I'll send you this, that, and the other. So, we can do those kinds of things where we're just helping to move people along, but we're adding value in the meantime. It doesn't have to be buy, for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great stuff. Okay, well, look, I think it doesn't look like we've got any other questions right now. If you're watching this on the replay and you have a question, pop it in the comments or contact one of us directly. We're happy to hear from you, and we'll get a little notification if someone comments, and we'll come back and answer your question. So thank you for being with us here today. Jess, thank you for sharing so much gold with us. And we're going to be focusing on sales next week. More details coming out. Make sure that you tap the bell to get notifications on our profiles, and you'll get to hear these. But we're here same time every week. So bye for now.
Well done, Jess. Bye for now.